You ever watch a play and feel the whole stadium hold its breath like it's one big living thing and then explode because the improbable suddenly became inevitable? That's what happened in Las Vegas when Cam Little stepped onto the field, drilled a 68-yard field goal as the half expired, and rewrote the NFL's record book in one quiet, thunderous swing. NFL.com picture the setup. Trevor Lawrence threads a pass, spikes the ball with 4 seconds left, and every jitter in the Jaguars special teams unit suddenly matters. The snap, the hold, the rush, all of it had to be flawless. Little walked in, trusted the motion, and launched a ball that didn't just clear the uprights, it cleared the idea of what was possible. 2 yards longer than Justin Tucker's 66-yard masterpiece from 2021, Little's kick landed in history as the longest FG ever made in an official NFL game. The stadium went from stunned silence to pandemonium in a blink, ESPN.com. If you want to understand why coaches greenlight a 68-yard attempt, you need to know the backstory. Little had already shown this leg could do damage. In August, during a preseason game, he drilled a 70-yard field goal, a shot that couldn't count for records but absolutely counted for confidence. That preseason strike didn't exist as a highlight for statisticians. It existed as proof to Liam Cohn and the Jaguars staff. This kid can really kick it that far. When you've seen someone do it once in game conditions, the risk calculus changes. Reuters. Let's slow the tape down because the details are the reason this wasn't luck. For a 68-yard attempt to succeed, you need a perfect snap and hold, an unblocked kicking lane, optimal plant foot mechanics, and the exact launch angle that gives both carry and height. If the line rush is just right, the kick's trajectory becomes a target for a block. If the contact isn't pure, it falls harmlessly short. Little hit the sweet spot on all of that, and the preseason work, the long reps, the K-ball practice, whatever you want to call it, paid off at the perfect moment. NFL.com, there's a practical ripple to this moment that changes the game planner's math. End of half strategies now have a different fork. Do you burn downs to get inside the 50-yard line, or do you spike and let a kicker you trust try from midfield plus? When a team can credibly attempt and make a 60-plus yard field goal, you can play with the clock in ways you couldn't before. That should terrify defensive coordinators. The Jaguars didn't just add 3 points, they added a new column to every opponent's late half checklist. NFL.com, those 3 points mattered. The Jaguars tied the game later with a 48-yard field goal to force overtime, and they won 30-29 after a wild finish that included a stopped 2-point try and last-second drama. Little's long boot wasn't the only reason Jacksonville escaped with the win, but it was the play that shifted momentum and belief. The kind of play a locker room repeats to itself the next week when someone needs courage. ESPN.com now. Now meet the kicker. Cam Little was a 6th-round pick in 2024 out of Arkansas, and his rookie season built trust, accuracy, composure, and a leg that demanded respect. He wasn't a one-note boom guy. He paired long range with solid touch in shorter situations. That combination, accuracy plus freak range, is what turns a novelty into a weapon. Teams will pay for that reliability, and coaches will design clock management around it. Fox Sports Spice. There's also a league-wide storyline here. Kicking has been quietly evolving. Better conditioning, more specialized kicking balls, and an emphasis on repetition have pushed long attempts into the doable column more often than at any point in history. Little's record is a visible marker of that trend. When the preseason allowed kickers to work a 70-yarder under game pressure and then replicate it under live conditions, the league moved the needle on what officials, coaches, and fans expect. This moment is both individual brilliance and system confirmation. Reuters. Of course, there's a counterbalance worth noting. Long kicks are still volatile. Weather, turf, rush angle, and sheer randomness mean a 68-yard attempt will still feel borderline reckless in many stadiums. Preseason 70-yarders don't count on the record board for a reason. Exhibition conditions and wind patterns vary. But Little's result makes the risk less theoretical and more tactical. Coaches will now weigh, can he make it differently when they know he has already done it in a meaningful game? ESPN.com film teachers will point to 3 teachable micro moments from the kick: the snap's tempo, the holder's toe position, and Little's plant foot alignment. Drill those three elements and you turn a miracle into a repeatable play. That's the difference between highlight and new strategy. And Jacksonville's special team staff just handed every kicking program in the league a short syllabus. Expect more coaches to practice the spike and kick sequences that once felt like Hail Mary gambits. NFL.com, what does this mean longer term? For the Jaguars, it's immediate. A weapon at the end of halves, a morale boost in a tight season, and a recruiting card when selling special teams prospects. For opponents, it's a headache. How do you plan for someone who can reliably stretch the scoring range by 10 to 15 yards? And for the league, it's a reminder that records aren't relics, they're targets. When a player trains with intent and executes under pressure, the historical ceiling drops a bit lower. Jaguars.com. Close your eyes and hold this picture. The ball coming off Little's foot, a perfect high arc that somehow seems to hang a moment too long. Then the net, then teammates sprinting, a coach pumping a fist, and a city remembering that wild things can still happen on a Sunday. Records get mentioned in the box score. The memory of that arc gets mentioned in barstool debates and family group chats for years. Cam Little didn't only make a kick, he handed the NFL one of those moments that folks will say, remember where you were when. And honestly, that's why we watch. What if I told you one of the quietest, strangest miracles in football came from the end of a spike, a kicker's confidence, and 4 seconds on the clock? Trevor Lawrence stops the clock. The stadium holds its breath. Cam Little walks on and in a single arc of leather and air rewrites what everyone thought possible. He didn't just make a field goal. He made history. NFL.com, he'd teased it back in August, in a preseason moment that felt part bravado, part experiment. Little boomed a 70-yarder that lived for a few glorious seconds in highlight reels and then didn't count for the record books because preseason is its own parallel universe. Still, the preseason kick mattered less as an official number and more as a message. This isn't fluke power. He'd felt the distance. He knew the leg. Coaches remembered. That memory made a decision on Sunday less insane and more calculated. Reuters picture the scene before the kick. The Jaguars trailing, the clock bleeding toward halftime, a stadium tuned to the low frequency of what if. The math said 68 yards. The risk said maybe insanity. The reward said 3 points and a heartbeat change in momentum. Little, a young kicker who'd come up through college at Arkansas and landed in Jacksonville as a late-round pick, tried it. The ball left his foot like a comet. People leaned forward. It sailed. Uprights caught the sound. The record, Justin Tucker's 66-yard masterpiece from 2021, was surpassed by 2 yards. And for a moment, television felt like theater and physics at once. There's humor in the moment, too. You can almost picture the special teams coach glancing at the analytics chart and then at the kicker, like two people agreeing to a small, reckless war. It's the kind of decision that looks insane on paper and brave in the film room. The Jaguars had seen the 70-yarder in preseason. They knew there was room for faith. That's how tiny myths start. An off-season stunt becomes a mid-season legend, and for the players, for the fans in the stands, it became one of those moments that makes the rest of the game feel secondary. Jaguar tonight, fat game. Jaguars.com. But history didn't live only in the highlight. That kick changed the game. It put points on the board at the exact moment a team most needed them. Momentum in football is a slippery, stupid thing. One three-pointer before halftime can rearrange play calling, sharpen a coach's aggression, and flip an entire locker room's mood. Later, when Little calmly drilled a 48-yarder to force overtime, you understood the full architecture. The record wasn't a spectacle for spectacle's sake. It was a lever that helped pull an overtime win into being. The final score said 30-29, but those kicks were why the Jaguars had a chance to celebrate in overtime. Jaguars.com. There's a human spine running through this. Cam Little wasn't a guaranteed star. He was a 6th-round pick who earned roster respect the hard way. He'd hit nearly everything